It is now October, which means it's nearly been a year of working on Fun Factory. So I thought today I'd talk about the process of making Fun Factory and the journey I've been on thus far. To put simply, before this I was working on another VR title, which was a bomb VR game, kind of like Do Not Press the Button and those types of smaller indie games where you have a base level. By trying new things and failing, you unlock and progress in the game. And while working on this project, I was learning the tools and kind of understanding how VR worked, both programming wise in Unity and kind of understanding design principles and what I could do personally, kind of understanding my skill set. And one of the problems I ran into was with the packages I was using. Because I have a Vive and Valve had set up a really good asset for Steam VR, I was using this as my base model. It gave me really good VR hands, which I think were extremely important. And in the process of doing this, they actually updated them to be physically interactable in the environment. One of the problems I was having, which is kind of a critical process in independent game development, was finding resources. A lot of my work is really dependent on learning through Google and Unity forums and trying to find good resources, examples obviously that kind of lay out how it's done, but also communities where I can ask questions and learn about how the system works. The problem at the time, however, was that Steam VR had just gone 2.0. It was a whole new input system, and all the resources I was searching for, I would be sent back to older versions which didn't have the features I wanted, but the resources were there. So I'd either have to sacrifice physically based hands and these input systems I really enjoyed. And by the way, being on the most stable, updated version for something that had more resources and was, I guess, simpler to understand because of that. But it was a bit tricky for me to kind of weigh up between the two. The main reason this was important to me was because I wanted to be able to implement my own systems into the engine. And the main problem I was having was, for example, if I wanted to do clippers to cut the bomb wire, I wouldn't know how to do that because I didn't know how to access the controller input and things like that. I can confidently say now I'm a lot more confident in that space. Do not fear. This was from like a year ago, so don't sweat it. Things are a lot better now. But at the time, I was kind of like, okay, I need to step back and think, what can I make with the resources that I have? And then the perfect opportunity arose when good old Draw with Jazza, now known as Jazza, started a competition because he was going away on holiday for a few weeks, and he was going to publish other creators' content to kind of give them an outreach of a new audience. And I thought, great, it's the perfect time for me to set myself a deadline and something to achieve and kind of scope in and really focus on making something. And you can find that video right here if you want to watch it if you haven't already. And that kind of shows where I was at in the beginning of the project. One thing I did with this project that I think everyone should do is make a base prototype first. I didn't want to get caught up in the art or the overall design and making things look good, but I was testing systems and making sure, okay, if I have this cube on this trigger, can I script it to make it move in this direction? Can I place these things in bins? Are the ideas in my head plausible in the engine? I did a base block out. It looks terrible. It in no way represents the final product in a sense, but the base mechanics are there. That has not changed. The code might have been cleaned up a little bit just because it was a bit messy, but the process and the way in which I achieved boxes landing on conveyor belts and going towards the player and the player picking it up and putting it in bins and throwing it around, all those systems and mechanics have not changed in the past year of making Fun Factory. What has changed, however, are two things. One is the scope of the project, and two is the aesthetic and overall art style, I guess, of it all. Originally, I was going for a more simplified, cutesy art style because it was something that I could mock up in Photoshop and UV unwrap in Blender and kind of just stick it on. And I kind of wish I'd stuck with that just because it would have saved me a lot more time now. And the reason I changed over to a more realistic approach was for two reasons as well. One was that the platform I was aiming for was for a PC VR game. This wasn't Oculus stuff. Oculus wasn't as big when I started this project. I think had it come out? I'm not sure. Oculus Quest, May 2019. Okay, so the Oculus had come out, but at the time it was still growing. Forward to now, and I definitely would have bought an Oculus Quest. I would have catered it to that system because this game is something that Oculus would really, I think, thrive on. It's a short game. I doubt it'll take even half an hour to an hour to finish the game. I think looking back, for sure, it would have been smart to do more research on what I was making and maybe think of a target audience. But my mindset through this project has kind of been making something that I am interested in, because this is a very self-motivated project, and something that I can show to publishers and future employers that this is what I'm capable of achieving, this is the quality of my work. And I thought by having a more realistic art style, I could kind of prove that I'm capable of doing game art and using Substance Painter, which I started learning in one of my subjects at uni, and thought, okay, this is something I really want to try and get my head around. And since this is a project I work so hard on, that'll give me time to learn this new software and pipeline, I guess. So I got the prototype working. I then did a basic design. I released a trailer. Originally, I had it so that you'd play a day or a shift, and there'd be 7 days. I didn't really know what was going to happen in those 7 days. I kind of just assumed that the game would get harder, would have different packages, and the speeds would increase and all that sort of stuff. But as a break in each day, you would be given your paycheck and you'd be taxed, and then you would be kind of in a weird space of the boot of your car is open and there's groceries and like essential items you need to buy, and you'd pick those things up and put them in the boot, and when you did that, then your balance would go down. Problem with this was that it felt a little gimmicky in the sense of it wasn't as realistic as I would have liked it to be. So I actually changed it to be a kitchen table, and you had bills on the table with a laptop that again showed your balance. So I was still kind of bringing over those core ideas, but reinventing it in a way that felt a bit more realistic. And then now I've redesigned it again because that room felt very dark and empty, and it was focused on what the player needed to do, but the mechanic of picking up these weird brown coins and placing them on the bills, again, it had the same thing of that original idea of putting items in the back of your boot. It just broke a little bit of that element of the world building. So I've again redesigned it, and now it is your home office. And we still have those papers, we still have those bills and those letters, and you still have a computer screen which kind of tells you your balance and financially what's going on, which by the way was originally inspired by Papers, Please by Lucas Pope. I love that guy. Oh, love him so much. But now there's an in and out pile, and you just place things in certain areas. So there's still that mechanic, and I'm still using those core scripts that are in Steam VR, but it just feels, for me at least, a bit more natural. It makes a bit more sense in the scope of the world. I say I've been working on this game for, 9, 10, 11 months, however long it's actually been. But for a long period of that, I was doing university stuff. I was building other game projects. I was making 3D models. I was writing up essays and doing presentations, and I would have little ideas of other games I wanted to do, and I got burnt out definitely for a good portion of the year on Fun Factory. I'd always come back and revisit it. I might redesign something or try to do a script, or really I was stepping back a lot to kind of look at the scope of the project and try to understand where I'm at and where I want to be, because to put it simply, I wasn't happy with where Fun Factory was. I tried to include more character, I would experiment with new ideas, and there came a point where I actually upgraded the engine to the newest version of Unity 2020. And here is the great mistake, but also the thing that got me going, was Unity 2020. Because fun fact, as of right now, OpenVR, which is the system that anything that isn't Oculus pretty much uses, is no longer supported by Unity. That's been handed over to Valve and they're sorting that out. Problem with that is, as good as Valve's content is when they release it, their time frame is terrible. That kind of leaves people who are working on these systems twiddling their thumbs thinking, okay, I can't use the latest version of Unity. There's people on Oculus who, have that support. I love my Vive and I don't want to have to sign into Facebook to use a headset. But I was able to, because I upgraded it from an older version of Unity, we still had those old versions in place and we could still use the deprecated systems in the newest version of the engine. VR is just in a very tricky space. If you're not developing for Oculus, it's just hard, I guess. It's just another problem that I have to go through to resolve. But anyway, over time, I worked on the design of the game. We got new boxes that look more realistic. I started adding new materials. I was learning how to best implement the visual aspect of things, because here's a core problem with VR. You're rendering two cameras. And so while all of these more modern games look absolutely stunning, a decent computer can handle those at a moderate rate. But make it do it twice, and expecting a high fidelity is really hard. I'm feeling now that I'm at a place that if I was able to give myself a good month or two of solid work, we could have this thing done and wrapped up early next year, maybe? At the end of the first video I made of Fun Factory, I was really proud of the progress I had made in those few weeks. And it does disappoint me a little bit when I look back at all these months that I've had and the progress has been a bit finicky and I feel like some things have been wasted. But I will say this year has probably been the most that I've improved my skills as a game developer. I think that I understand more the importance of design, and those courses at uni have helped me understand that you need to plan and understand certain aspects of your project for it to be successful and for you to be proud of it. Anyway, so here we are as game developers and as creators. We'll make something and then we'll revisit it and we'll add more layers to it, add more depth. We'll try to improve it, basically. And I can see that now with Fun Factory, that I'm on the course of finishing this game to a standard that I am proud of. And yes, it's taken me longer than I expected, and I think everyone's journey is like that. But I'm really excited to finish this game. I really am. And I'm really proud of having core ideas and then slowly pivoting, not always 360 degrees, but in a different direction to kind of create a game that is what I originally wanted to make, but has turned into something that wasn't in my head originally. It's grown into its own thing. For those who want to work on games, understand that you have an idea, but once you start actually producing the product, it's going to have to grow into its own personality, and that's going to be through your own work, of course, but also through others and the community. A game isn't just made from the developer's perspective. A community needs to pick it up and needs to play it, and it needs to grow into its own thing. So that has been my progress report on Fun Factory and how something that started out like this can turn into something like this. I'm really excited because there's a few core aspects left in this project, but we're getting really close to the point where there's going to be another game trailer. possibly a Steam release date. That's pretty exciting. So until next week,